Neale, Director of Communication for Grande Portage Resources, who is focused on turning the Neale Gold Project into Alaska's next high-grade underground gold mine. Neale gets its namesake from the nearby legacy Almaga Gold Camp, which was active around the 1900s. Back then, you could say whatever the hell you wanted to sell your story, but I think we got a pretty exciting story to tell ourselves, but I advise everybody to please do your own research. Grande Portage has been, Neale is the only asset for the company, and it's 100% owned by the company. We acquired it in around 2008 and have grown the resource significantly. You can see the numbers there, about 1.5 million ounces indicated, about 500,000 ounces inferred, average grades of about 9 grams per ton over the resource. The current strategy that we're pursuing is DSO, or direct shipping of the ore. You'll see in a little bit the location just is favorable for that strategy. And we've done some preliminary offtake studies to get some pretty favorable returns. The big news that's coming up for the company is we've got a PEA that's hopefully coming out in a few weeks. I was hoping that it would be released before today so I could have some pretty splashy announcements, but we just want to make sure that we got all our numbers right before we release it publicly. This is a list of it's a list of high-grade undeveloped resources held by publicly traded companies. I know it's a little grainy and hard to read, so I'll clarify the important parts. You can see New Almaga there is a pure exploration project. There's a lot of optimism that we are poised to advance this towards production and development. Again, there's the size of the resource there. Roughly 7.5 million tons is the current resource as of 2024. Again, you can see the contained metals and the grades. This slide really points out why we believe that DSO is a favorable strategy. The project itself is located only about 4 miles from existing highway. That yellow line there is the Alaska State Highway that extends for another 13 miles to the north. And then there's another 4 miles to reach Cascade Point. I'll get into Cascade Point in another couple of slides, but the project itself is in a favorable jurisdiction. Juneau is the capital city of Alaska. There are 2 operating mines in the region. It's a very supportive and favorable community, and the project itself is only 20 miles from downtown. A little closer look at the actual resource area and why we think that DSO makes the most sense. Again, it's only about 4 miles from the Glacier Highway. The footprint itself would be much, much smaller without the need for a tailings facility or a processing facility. We likely would not build a camp. We would, because we're so close to the road system, everybody would be able to go home at the end of each shift. And so we would have roughly a 15% footprint compared to any conventional mine. It just really simplifies what the operations would be, as well as our permitting efforts to not have to permit a processing facility or tailing storage. I'm not a geologist, but I know geologists get excited about slides like this. The resource itself, like I said, it's been defined by about 200,000 feet of drilling over the last 15 years or so, 240 holes, and it's a mesothermal quartz vein system. We've identified 6 veins in the region. They're bounded on the east and the west there by those blue faults, but it does still appear to be open to the north, and all of the veins are open at depth. I've highlighted that whole DH11E2, which is actually, you can see the core in the banner of all the presentations. It had some pretty phenomenal results, roughly 37 grams per ton over a 15-meter intercept. And we've also taken some channel samples. You can see the goat vein there. There's been the deposit itself is really close to surface. In fact, it extends to surface in some places. And so we've been able to take some channel samples and get those results. But LiDAR and other studies show that this has a lot of potential for exploration. And the metallurgy has also been really phenomenal as well, with 98.2 recoveries. We do have a PEA coming out, so this will probably change, but we have done some conceptual mine planning. This would be representative of what the surface facilities would look like. I know this isn't to scale, but if we're standing at the portal and you wanted to walk all the way to that ore pile, you would basically walk past the convention center. I know a lot of us are going to PDAC over the next couple of days. If you walk past the convention center, you basically walk the entire length of the mine footprint. And it's important to note that that big brown box in the middle is just a temporary rock pile. That's where we would host our sorting facilities, and that would be waste rock that would then go back underground. So most of the things on this conceptual plan would be returned back to underground. Again, just a conceptual look at underground. This will likely change when the PEA comes out, hopefully in a few weeks. But as I said, the resource itself is very close to surface. There's nothing complicated about the mine planning itself. It would be a relatively shallow ramp down to the deposit itself, your typical crosscuts and stopes and vent raises, etc., to develop the mine plan. We have done some ore sorting studies. Basically, it's a conveyor belt. If you haven't seen this before, it's a conveyor belt with a bunch of sensors over top of it. That conveyor belt is going, lightning fast, and anything that it scans the material as it's going past. Anything that's identified as ore will just fall off the conveyor belt into a bin. Anything that's identified as waste will just get hit with an air blast and be sent into a waste pile. And you can see the results there that we've improved the amount of material that we'll be shipping off site by about 120%, or the grade of the material. So this is a closer look at just the ore transportation. Again, we got about 4 miles of road to build from the deposit itself to the Glacier Highway, which then extends for another 13 miles to the end of the road. And then after that, it's a parcel of land that's owned by Gold Belt. And Gold Belt is the Juneau-based Alaska Native Corporation. They own that land, but they're currently developing it. They're going to develop the road, that light blue section there. And they're also they're in talks and studies with the State of Alaska Department of Transportation to build a Alaska Marine Highway ferry system on their property. As a separate project to that, Grande Portage and Gold Belt have a letter of intent, and we would look at building an ore facility, an ore loading facility. That's the area highlighted in red there. All the material would be containerized at the mine site, driven roughly 20 miles out to Tidewater, and shipped to offsite processing facilities. As far as 2026, as I said, we got a preliminary PEA coming out in the next few weeks, definitely by the end of this quarter. We do have all of our, we are in the Tongass National Forest, so we are governed mostly by the U.S. Forest System. We do have all our authorizations in place for our activities this year. We're going to do some more drilling. We are going to be installing some environmental baseline collection systems, and we're also going to be doing some more baseline studies as well. This is all to get ready for environmental review, or the NEPA process, which we hope to start by the end of the year and get on the FAST 41 dashboard. If you're not familiar with FAST 41, stop by the booth. I'll educate you on how advantageous that is for the project. We also have an application for an easement. So about a third of the way to the deposit from Glacier Highway is state land. Currently out for public comment right now is an application for an easement to build a preliminary road and some laydown areas, which would greatly facilitate our field exploration activities, as we could stage our helicopter operations from closer to the road. Up until now, we've been basing everything out of Juneau. A little bit of look at the corporate structure. The share price right now, it closed at 55 cents, so our market cap is just north of $90 million. Some key highlights from the management team: Ian Klassen, he's the CEO. He's been the CEO since roughly 2010. And Kyle Mihalik, he's our project development guy, and he was the chief mining engineer at Greens Creek for several years before he formed his own company. And he's been the one that's really been pursuing the DSO strategy. And I'm the director of external communications. I've been with the company for about a year, but I've been in Southeast Alaska since Ted was 7. There, I just found the joke. Plenty of reasons to buy the company. I know it's been a long day. I'm not going to read this all to you, but if you want to stop by for a chat at the booth, I'll be there all day tomorrow. And thank you very much for your time.